Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. I want to tell you about a really wonderful book that is great for kids and really teaches a lot of life lessons, and it all starts with nature. And this is not just something the author just came up with. It is decades in the making. He had this idea 40-something years ago for this book called Jack Sprout. And no pun intended, or maybe so, it has grown into something pretty amazing. A music CD, a PC game for kids, and we're going to have him on today. We're going to talk about Jack Sprout in Beaver Creek Meadow. The author's name is Jack Shoop, and he's back with us on the program as our professional of the year. Hey, Jack, how are you?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to have you back here, and it's nice to see material written for kids that has a lesson, and not only just a lesson, but learning about nature in general. You know, with technology and digital, it's all good. There's a place for all of it.
Yeah.
But we forgot. I really feel that, you know, for our kids, we're forgetting about where it started, and that is everything starts with the earth. So you want to dig into another chapter today?
Yeah, let's start off with finishing chapter 1, and then we'll go into chapter 2. We're going to talk about water today, and mostly about Fred Beaver.
Sure. So chapter 1 was really about meeting Jack Sprout, the character.
Yeah, Jack Sprout grew from a sunflower seed, and he had a rough childhood because he grew arms and legs, and he didn't look like his friends. So he always wondered, and maybe what's wrong with me? How come I don't look like my friends? Maybe I'm a weed, you know. And then when Farmer Smith says, no, you're going to be the new farmer for Beaver Creek Meadow, so you got to get out of here on the night of the harvest moon. So we'll start from when he gets out of the field and gets out of the meadow.
Before we even continue, I want to ask this, and I'm intrigued even about your description of Jack Sprout, who was a little bit different than his peers. Would you say that there is a lot of similarities to your life, your upbringing in the book and in the characters?
Oh, yeah, I really do. I've never known where I'm going or what I'm going to do or whatever. I'll take the wrong road. I'll take the shortcut, you know, see what's going on. If there's 20 people looking over here, I'm over here. You know, I just want to do things different, kind of on purpose, really, sometimes. And you never know where it's going to lead. So I just kind of go where my instinct tells me, and that's kind of led me to this book. Because, you know, I've got, I don't know if I could sit down and write a book, but I just kind of go places where my instinct tells me, and I fell into this whole thing.
So do you want to move on to chapter 2 now?
Yeah, let's do.
Sure. Chapter 2 is Jack Sprout meets Fred Beaver, which is one of the pinnacle characters in the book because the book takes place in Beaver Creek Meadow, right? Right.
Okay, ready? So anyway, when he leaves the meadow, he leaves the sunflower field, he's out in the meadow, he goes to Grandma Elderberry, who runs the nut orchard just north of Farmer Smith's field. And she's just a squirrel, but she's the oldest farmer in the meadow, and she gave him clothes and a place to stay that night. But the next day, she sends him on his way. She goes, you're on your own now, Jack Sprout. And she sent him down the road because they had saved some land for him, because they knew, of course, he was going to be there. So she pats him on the back and says, go out and show us what you can do, Jack Sprout. And he looks at her and goes, I've never been a farmer before. I don't know how good a job I'm going to do for you guys. She goes, that's okay. You've come from the earth. You'll know what plants need, what kind of soil they need, and we all believe in you. And if you ever have any questions, you can ask me or Farmer Smith. So it's kind of like, okay, you're on your own now kind of deal. So he goes down to his pasture or field where his new farmland is, and he makes a, you know, grass and leaf bed. But he knew he was going to have to build a farmhouse. And he had heard that there's a beaver up the creek where he could get his wood. So he goes up to find Fred Beaver, and he walks along the creek. And every story, I won't go into what he does, but every story he has some place he's going to go, and along the way there's an adventure. So he has a lot of adventure along the creek as he goes to see Fred Beaver. But when he gets to Fred's place, Fred's out running around, jumping him down, all crazy, and Jack looks at him, and he yells, "What's wrong? Why are you jumping up and down?" He goes, "Can't you see? A log just busted through my dam, and if it lets all the water out, Beaver Creek Meadow is going to get flooded." So Jack goes, "Well, I came to get trees, but I see your dam is broke, so I'll help you." So that's one of those things where, when you see somebody's in trouble, you got to help them without asking. It's just natural inclination. Jack helped Fred. They got the dam under control. They made a raft, threw mud up on the dam and fixed it and got the water slowed down. But it was dangerous. They could have gotten rushed over the dam at any time. But they got the dam fixed. The meadow was saved from a flood. And then when they went over, when they were done, they went back in the meadow and laid down because they were exhausted. And Fred goes, "Thank Jack for helping him." He said, "I couldn't have done it without you." And Jack goes, "That's okay. I'm just glad to help." He says, "I see part of this dam looks really old. Did you build the dam yourself?" And that's when Fred goes in and says, "No, we built this dam a long time ago. They were the first settlers to the area, and they dammed up some small streams to slow them down, and they built this big dam to create the big pond. And that's how Beaver Creek Meadow grew, because other animals came and enjoyed the pond for, food, water, swimming, whatever. So that's why it's called Beaver Creek Meadow, because it was founded by the beavers. So his dad was in charge of the dams, and Fred said his dad came to him one day and said, "Fred, I can't paddle anymore. I got to turn this over to you." So Fred got the family business, and you might want to say, and he is in charge of all the dams now in Beaver Creek Meadow. And a lot of those dams, of course, the water that leaves Fred Dam creates Beaver Creek, and that water flows and turns the power wheel where they create the energy, and on and down it turns the flour mill power wheel, so they grind their millstone. And then it makes enough water so they can get boats up and down to the ocean. So water is a very important part of any community. Fred Beaver takes care of all of it. They got to watch out for floods, because when flood water comes, they have to release certain dams and stop up others. So they keep the meadow from flooding. They keep traffic going, and it's just a really important part. And also, the dams, people know that the CO2 we have in the air is absorbed by the oceans and by water. So all of Fred's dams are also helping, minimize the CO2 that's in the air. So there's a lot going on with Fred and his dams. He's very important part of the Beaver Creek Meadow.
I don't hear any concern. A lot of us, even children, have anxiety and things like that. It just seems that they don't worry about things in Beaver Creek Meadow, or do they?
No, they don't, because everybody has a job to do. Like, everybody knows Fred's taking care of the dams, Fred's taking care of the water, and everything will be all right. And as we go along in the book, there's a red-tailed hawk that soars over the meadow and finds out what's wrong, what's going on. And, the farmers take care of the food, the bees take care of the honey, and the nature takes care of itself. That's what I'm saying, because there's no humans in the store, there's no cows and pigs and goats that need to be fed. Everybody has a job to do and takes care of their part of the meadow. And I never thought of what you said, and never thought of it that way. But personally, I'm not a negative thinking guy, and so I didn't put that in there. And I know a lot of stories. There's the bad guy, and you've got to overcome, whatever, and then have a, happy ending. But that book's not like that. It's just everybody's doing their job. I mean, Fred had his dam fell apart, and Jack helped him fix it. So that's a little bit of trauma, but they're not worried. They're just working with nature, because nature will take care of them, and they'll take care of nature.
Well, there's a lesson to come from that, because the more and more I just get intentional and think about animals, for example, they don't worry. When you think about it, they live in the moment, like your dog. He's not worried about what's happening, in an hour from right now or what happened in the past. The past, if there was an issue, it's on his radar, but he's not marinating in that. And when it comes to, let's say, being fed, you can't say, hey, listen, buddy, I'll feed you in a half hour from now. No, he wants to eat now. He's living in the now. So there's a lesson there. And same thing with, everybody that's in the meadow. It seems like they're living in the now. They're getting done what they need to get done, and they'll worry about things if they need to worry about things.
Yeah, you got to know the animals know what's going on.
Yes.
For their life. They know when to breed, they know when to eat, they know when to migrate. Can you imagine some of the birds come from South America, and they come up to the United States.
Yeah.
They're all in tune to the vibrations of the earth.
Yep.
We all know that, but sometimes we forget that. They take care of themselves because they listen. The roots talk to each other underground because they intersect each other, and from vibration, they know what's going on. They know the storms are coming. They know a lot more than we tell them to. And a lot of us will go, look at this trick I taught my dog, And, the dog knows more than that. They know words. And you don't have to teach animals out in the nature anything, really.
It's pretty amazing. And they just have that intuition. They know what they got to do. They know what their job is, their function is, and all of that. So where do we go on in chapter 2 as we move along there with the situation that arose?
Well, that's pretty much it, because they found out how the dam was built and how important was, and it's his job to take care of the meadow. But I want to, if I could, just a little second. I ran into a guy named Robert Ballard who discovered the Titanic.
Sure.
And I spent 30 minutes with him, and he has the outlook. He was a marine scientist, and he looks at the ocean like we look at the land. That gave me a different perspective. So in other words, he says, we got the Oregon Trail. We know all about what's on top of the land, but nobody has mapped out the ocean. There's tons of minerals down there, and there's lots that we can learn from the ocean. So that's a whole other world that it's not even discovered, because water is a very important part of the world, of course. And so he said, whatever we've done up here as far as exploration, we haven't even started in the ocean. So in the Beaver Creek Meadow, the beaver is a very important part of that whole scene.
Do you feel that we take it for granted? Like you talk about the ocean. Many of us think, all right, with today's technology, they got things figured out. They know what's going on where and such. But it's think about how vast the ocean is. How could everything be figured out at this point?
Yeah, there's no way.
Right.
He's a marine scientist, and he got the Navy to build him a submersible to go down and find the Titanic. But before he did that, he had to go down and find 2 nuclear subs first, because the Navy didn't want anybody to know about that. So as far as the mapping and the minerals and the usage, it's just not discovered yet. And it's kind of hard to say, well, people don't know this, people don't know that. But, just like the animal, a lot of people just go day to day, and they just get through the day, and they do the job, and they do what they got to do, and they go home. They're not really interested in figuring out how the world works. So there's a lot of people out there doing that, but they come up with different, and I'm not into the climate change kind of theories. Things happen, but I think everything will always work out. I'm a positive guy. I always think it's going to work out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's a lot. I lived in Hawaii for a long time, and there's volcano activity. I still get blown away how there could be a volcano in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
How could fire be floating on water? You know what I mean? So there's a lot we have no idea what's going on. But I think the ocean is going to play a more important part as we go along for minerals, transportation, and all that kind of things.
Yeah, I heard this recently, and I believe it was Sir Isaac Newton who said it. While we're talking about water and knowledge, he said, and I think I'm getting this right, but I might be paraphrasing it a bit. What we know is a drop. What we don't know is the ocean.
Yeah, that's true. That's what this guy said. That's what Ballard said. He goes, we don't know anything.
Right. But you take it for granted, with all the technology that we have, you just assume, oh, well, that's been figured out. Oh, well, they already know that. Oh, no, not really.
Yeah. I hear a lot when people talk about my book and their kids and all that. So you talk about life lessons. There's so many life lessons in here. They go, well, it's 2025. Don't you think by now I go, no, that's not the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because it's 2025, that doesn't mean kids know where the sun comes up, how to tell time by the sky, and when the wind's out of the northeast, what's that mean? They got to be told that stuff. And I don't know. I didn't read. My son was born in '90, so I didn't. But I don't know. A lot of parents maybe are giving up. That the kids are on their machine, and the machine knows everything, and you can Google everything. Maybe they're giving up on getting down to the nitty gritty of learning. I hope not. But
yeah,
I talked to a teacher, or she was online or something. She's a second or third grade teacher. And she said when kids come into her class in the morning, she looks at them and she goes, they're not there. And she looks in their eyes and they're like, you guys ain't even ready to learn because they've just been on some screen somewhere from the time they woke up.
Yeah.
So I hope that parents aren't giving up and just letting the machines take over. And if you don't know, Google it, that kind of thing. Because there's a lot to learn from water runs downhill. When I was a little kid, I heard that I'm talking, always standing by my dad, and he's talking to guys, and the guy goes, well, water always runs downhill, so don't worry about it. I go, I know he's little, but I thought, wow, that's the truth, That'll be the truth tomorrow, and for the rest of my life, water runs downhill. Not a big deal, but kind of nice. There's not too many truths around. But once I heard that, I go, wow, that's true.
I appreciate your view of these things because and this is why the book is so wonderful and effective, that you take, different situations and you make them easy to understand and fundamental. The stuff we're talking about, we could be talking about it 50 years ago and it's still relevant, just minus the screens and the digital technology and all of that. It's a shame that we got away from a lot of this, the fundamental stuff. Well,
thanks for saying that. You're very perceptive, and I hear that a lot. And what I say is that it's hard or difficult to make things simple. You can't what I'm doing is taking nature and interaction with animals that are being neighbors and helping each other, and creating it very simple. It's nothing's complicated. What I talk about. But I talk about the day-to-day helping each other, working, how's your farm, how's your transportation, how's this. And it's kind of simple, but I try not to make it boring and, a little creative here and there. But thanks for noticing that because, that's exactly what I'm doing.
I guess it's because maybe I've started to look at life a little bit differently, right down to when we talk about animals. Take it for granted. People say, oh, my dog knows what I'm thinking. Oh, my cat knows what's going on. Yeah, they actually do. They do, yeah. Because they don't have to worry about mortgage payments, rent, car payments, stress, screens, digital, that, all of that. They focus on receiving information. Call it telepathy, whatever. They're connecting with what's around them. And and I've talked to animal communicators, and they can teach how to communicate. They've given me some tips. I've tried them on my animals. It's amazing what I received. Because that's what's going on, but we're missing all of that. We're missing all of that because we're too distracted.
Yeah, and then so I think on the same line there, people don't give them enough credit to they have ears, they have eyes, they got feelings, they can hear. If you call every dog knows its name, so he knows certain words if it's repeated to him. They have dogs now that can help people that are having a stroke. Or they go and tell them, hey, you're going to have a stroke. You better lay down.
Yeah. I forgot about that, Jack. Yeah, you have the animals that can sniff out cancer, dogs that sniff cancer.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So maybe we ought to let them in on our game.
Right. What do you with a moment left here, and we'll get to other chapters, but for you personally, is there one chapter that I know we're going in order, but one that you personally like over maybe some of the other ones that stands out for whatever the reason? Maybe it resonates with you personally as the author.
Well, there's a chapter in there has a house raising, and that ties it all together for me because my grandparents were born in the 1890s, and when they were farming, it's the same way they've been farming since day one. Mm-hmm. And when they got together, you hear these stories, but it was really true when they did it. They would hitch up the 12-team horses in the morning and go all day on the farm. They would, when they picked their corn in the cornfield, they'd put it in a little teepee shape for it to dry out, and they'd all come to each other's house for harvest time, and the women would do all the cooking. It was a big deal, and that to me is like cool. I mean, that's like neighbors. The old neighbors helping neighbors deal, and the food was awesome, and the stories, and they got the work done. And it's like you help them, and they help you, and they helped each other. It's kind of like the Amish, I guess. I mean, they help you. We're going to build your house next week, and we're all coming over. So one chapter I have where everybody came over and helped Jack build his house.
Wow.
Wow. So that was it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I get the picture of, TV shows of the past where, a neighbor comes over to borrow a cup of sugar. Nowadays, if I knocked on my neighbor's door, and I moved about 2 years ago, I'm sure they would give me a look like, you want to borrow what? Why are you here?
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah. But that's true, but that's all pattern response.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I don't give up on the whole deal, because it's just pattern response. It can change at any time for sure. Better.
Best way to find out more about your book, how do we do that?
Well, I'm on Amazon. The book is on Amazon. And I keep telling people that it's a really educational book if you're a teacher. There's a lot, each lesson. This is about trees, this is about water, this is about bees, so you could have a lot of different lessons on each chapter. And it's, Amazon.com, get the Kindle or the paperback. And then, of course, jackstout.com, you can buy the book off of there if you want.
Right. Lots of details about the characters and everything else that you got going on. Jack, great having you.
Yeah, on jackstout.com, the first page, you can read excerpts of each chapter. But nobody's going to be disappointed if they buy the book. There's like 30,000 books over there. This is going to be just as good as anything.
Yep.
Teaching.
And just because of the approach, there's so much to be learned in here. Not just a quote-unquote life lesson, but how ecology works, how the environment works, the universe, and all of that. It's great having you on here. I'm looking forward next time we dig back into it.
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.